Hamas has been in abrogation of the ceasefire since the beginning. Hamas was supposed to bring back all of the deceased hostages within 72 hours of the Trump-brokered ceasefire about 2 weeks ago. So what you see is a pattern of Hamas consistently abrogating and violating the ceasefire. I think that the Israelis have come to the conclusion that Hamas only responds to strength. It was military pressure that allowed the Israelis to get to this ceasefire. It was military pressure on their stronghold in Gaza City. It was support from the US and Trump's backing of Israel's policy. Someone must ensure that Hamas disarms. It is a critical and basic tenet of peace going forward. And by the way, it's better for Gazans. There are over 2 million Gazans that are waiting to rebuild their homes.
Hello and welcome. I'm Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching India Today Global. As the fragile ceasefire in Gaza hangs in the balance following yesterday's deadly Israeli strikes that claimed over 100 Palestinian lives, including dozens of children, and Israeli subsequently announced that they are resuming the compliance with the truce. We are joined by the leading voice on Middle East security and counter-terrorism, Enia Krivine. She is a senior director of the Israel Program and National Security Network at the Foundation of Defense of Democracies. To discuss the West Asia situation, Enia is with us. Welcome to the show, Enia.
Thank you for having me.
My first question to you, that over 100 Palestinians have been killed in yesterday's strike carried out by the Israeli Defense Forces. And now Israel says that the Hamas broke the rules of the ceasefire in Rafah region. Were those strikes justified in your opinion?
Thanks again for having me. So the strike was precipitated by the killing of an Israeli soldier near the Rafah crossing. So the killing of the soldier is what precipitated this strike that killed dozens of terrorists and, like you said, was a heavy casualty. However, Hamas has been in abrogation of the ceasefire since the beginning. Hamas was supposed to bring back all of the deceased hostages within 72 hours of the Trump-brokered ceasefire about 2 weeks ago. So what you see is a pattern of Hamas consistently abrogating and violating the ceasefire, and Israel responding accordingly. And as Trump said today, if Hamas violates the ceasefire, then Israel has full rights to retaliate.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a situation. But Israelis hit hard, and then hours later, now the Israeli Defense Forces have said that they are back to ceasefire. Does that strengthen the truce or just invite more tests from Hamas?
I think that the Israelis have come to the conclusion that Hamas only responds to strength. It was military pressure that allowed the Israelis to get to this ceasefire. It was military pressure on their stronghold in Gaza City. It was support from the US and Trump's backing of Israel's policy. Now Israel has all of the live hostages out of Gaza, and it needs to still get back over a dozen of the deceased hostages. And Hamas continues to play these games, slow rolling the return of the deceased hostages, while Israeli families inside of Israel are just waiting to bury their loved ones. So if Hamas wants the truce to continue, then they have to also abide by the terms of the ceasefire, which means returning the bodies of the dead hostages, which they simply refuse to do.
But Ania, there have always been questions about the trust deficit on either side. Now, Hamas calls it as a pretext and is dragging its feet on hostage remains. How big a deal is that for keeping this ceasefire alive?
The trust deficit is real, and I think that every time Hamas plays these games with the return of the hostages, as they did just yesterday, sir, when they returned. They said they were returning hostages, and they made this whole pageant and dog and pony show where they brought back the remains of an Israeli who has been returned months ago to Israel. They involved the International Red Cross in this charade where they dug a hole and then placed remains of this poor dead body in the hole and then excavated them. So I think there's a trust deficit in order for the truce to go forward, which the people of Gaza and most Israelis wish to see. They want this war to end. Hamas has to comply with the terms. According to Israeli intelligence, Hamas knows where 10 of the 13 bodies left in Gaza are. So it's now up to them to deliver on the terms of the Trump-negotiated ceasefire and hopefully get to a point where we can have a truce, a long-standing truce, and Gaza can begin to can begin to rebuild. The ball is in Hamas's court.
Absolutely, the ball lies in Hamas's court. But Ms. Krivine, you have seen truce collapse before as well. Now with President Donald Trump's hyped 20-point Gaza peace plan in play, what's the one thing leaders must get right to make peace stick, and especially with Iran in keeping Iran in context?
So I think that the best thing that world leaders can do is stand up to terrorism. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They still have 13 deceased Israelis buried in Gaza that they need to return. And I think having a unified voice from the international community, from Western world leaders, say that this is the truce, these are the terms, Hamas needs to return the bodies, and then Israel will be willing to move to phase two. It's a very, very simple calculation. Hamas must comply with the terms of the deal. From the beginning, Israel has demanded two things from Hamas: return the hostages and disarm. But the hostages must come first, and this is Trump's demand.
Ms. Krivine, you mentioned about the disarming of Hamas. This remains a bigger question. How will Hamas disarm? Who will make them disarm? Who will make them lay their arms? There are many things which are still vague and still work in progress. But in your opinion, in your assessment, how the future of this Gaza peace plan depends on Hamas laying down their arms? And can there be a possibility of international stabilization force actually taking control of Gaza? Or does it only add to the fragility of any peace initiative?
I think that ultimately disarming Hamas has to be the goal of phase two of the deal. And that is how Trump laid it out, and that is how Israelis see it. There are still tens of thousands of Israelis that have now returned to the border of Gaza and who are living within a couple of kilometers of these Hamas forces. So in order for Israelis to feel safe on the border, Hamas will have to be disarmed. And whether that is through international peace forces or international security forces, as I hope will play out, or whether that has to be the IDF, someone must ensure that Hamas disarms. It is a critical and basic tenet of peace going forward. And by the way, it's better for Gazans. There are over 2 million Gazans that are waiting to rebuild their homes, that are waiting for international investment. And until Hamas disarms, until that the enclave is rid of the terror organization, there's not going to be the kind of development, there's not going to be the kind of investment that the Gazans need. So I think that however it's achieved, whether it's through an international security force or through the IDF, it has to be the goal for Gaza and the goal for Israel and the goal for peace.
Enia, very last question, that the Gaza peace plan, whatever has been agreed in Sharm el-Sheikh, is only 17 days old, and we have seen many breaches in this Gaza ceasefire and this entire action plan. What would you advise to cement it further? What would be, in your opinion, need to be done to ensure that there is a lasting peace, there is a lasting and a more robust ceasefire in place?
I would like to see the Gazans replacing Hamas. I keep coming back to this. It's such a critical point. Hamas cannot remain in charge of Gaza. And indeed, Trump's truce lays out a reality where Hamas is no longer at the helm. He's offered them amnesty. He's offered to evacuate them to other Arab countries. This is the only way forward. And again, there are different ways to approach the problem set. It can be an international security force or it can be the IDF. But someone must disarm Hamas. And this is the only way to move forward to a sustainable peace.
Thank you very much for sharing your opinion and perspective with us, Ania. And we hope that there has to be a concrete action and concrete deliverables on ground, and to ensure that there is a lasting peace in Gaza and in entire West Asia at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.